So I met Jimmy in a crowded place we both knew. I got there 15 minutes early and I saw that Jimmy was already there. He took the booth near the window so he could see everyone who drove up to the restaurant. He wanted to make sure I wasn't tailed. He was jumpy. He hadn't touched a thing. On the surface, of course, everything was supposed to be fine. We were supposed to be discussing my case, but I had the feeling Jimmy was trying to sense whether I was going to rat him out to save my neck.
Welcome back to the Harbor. I'm your host, the Kino Cowboy. I'm here with my co-host, Scott Keith. We're talking about my favorite gangster film of all time, controversial maybe, Goodfellas, 1990, our boy Scorsese. And you know, as far as it goes, whenever you mention that you like Goodfellas more than The Godfather, not everyone judges you. Some people say, yeah, that's fair. And other people are like, no, that's Kino blasphemy. You have to respect The Godfather, which I do. I like The Godfather. I think it's great. This just speaks to me a little bit more.
Right. I don't know, and I don't go around in internet cinephile circles as much as you do. Um I know people who prefer Goodfellas to The Godfather. It's a more digestible movie. It's 30 minutes shorter and it's more episodic in how it presents its scenes. Each scene is a little self-contained story often. Um, which Scorsese, I think, it was intentional on his part, because if you're jumping back and forth in time and going over a person's life, it's a good way to present it because life is not a movie. So to give it some sort of narrative structure, it's good to have like, well, here are all these moments and let's just try to connect them instead of having a sort of linear exposition of everything that happened. Um, because I was thinking about this Godfather versus Goodfellas thing. First of all, you don't get Goodfellas without Godfather. Like you just don't get it. That's like saying, I don't know, you don't get the Matrix without Ghost in the Shell. That was a very weird example, very specific. Been on a Matrix kick recently. You know what I mean, though.
Yeah, totally. I get that. And
And, well, I will say I prefer The Godfather to this overall, probably, because I think it has grander themes, and it's a movie about America, and so is this. But
definitely is.
it this is a movie I can throw on anytime and watch. And a lot of my time watching this movie, because this is a very good rewatch. It's been a few years since I sat down and watched this beginning to end, but it's also one of those, if this is on TV, I stop whatever I'm doing and watch it.
That is one of the most like stop what you're doing and watch it on TV movies
Yeah,
of all
it's
time.
it's it's up there with like Shawshank in terms of, you know,
Yeah.
um except this doesn't appeal to my, I don't know, mom as much, I guess. No, because it's so episodic and because it's so engaging, and you can pick it up at any point in the story, and pretty much get a sense of what's going on. Honestly, I feel like, even if I dropped you in the middle of this movie, the storytelling is so clear, you could get a sense of who these characters are and their relationship to each other, um, at pretty much any point. Because in a lot of ways, this transcends the crime genre, even though it is, the example of a post Godfather father crime movie. Because a few months ago saw Scarface in theaters, which was actually the first time I saw Scarface. Didn't like it. I'll be honest, didn't like it. The acting, it's just like, why didn't we put Latinos in this movie? First of all, to play Latinos is one. It was one of those things. I feel like Pacino was method acting with cocaine, and probably still is, because I think he just had a kid a few months ago and he's like 80, so
Yeah.
Lord knows what's going on in that dude's head. Um, but that's the most gangster thing I've ever seen is Al Pacino still knocking it out of the park, getting it in at his age. Um,
Yeah.
but there's a similar rise and fall, but because this is based on reality, it doesn't have that Hollywood sheen or even that sort of moralizing um, that some movies with the rise and fall have. Um, because in Scarface, it's a very sort of quaint crime doesn't pay, and I feel like that's about as far as it goes thematically. I'm probably underserving it. Um, this movie's a lot more textured because again, it's based on real life. Um, and the comeuppance at the end, it's very banal. It's not almost banal. It's incredibly banal how this
Yeah.
movie ends, which is the point. And the reality of the story. Um, and this movie is so goddamn detailed and textured and precise in every scene. Even just things you want to watch that are so simple, like the guy in the rain, young Henry's holding the umbrella over him, and he has a cigar in his mouth, and he's bopping around. He has this like waddle that he does because he's this big Sicilian guy. Just stuff like that is just inherently interesting to watch. You know,
Totally. And to me, its portrait of America is more than the sum of its parts. Like, obviously, Scorsese chooses very specific songs to represent these time periods, and that accompanies it, and he has certain things going on. But like, I feel like it just all comes together in a way that feels like more than it is, even though it's just center on this tiny little group of people in the world. It just feels like big America, even though it's just one aspect of society decades ago. And and that is honestly one of the best usage, like the best selection of music, just like American Graffiti. Like he is like on point with picking stuff that just adds to the scenes really well, especially as someone who grew up with you know foreigners who played this kind of Frank Sinatra music all the
yeah,
time.
we gotta mention your national connection to this because you are
Yeah,
Mediterranean.
I'm Mediterranean, so I get a slight bit of this. I get a bit of the old country and the new country from some of my dad's friends and relatives over here. I've seen some stuff growing up that's kind of similar with the way that people, certain groups keep to themselves, and like they're always around their mothers and their sisters' mothers and their cousins, and then it's like a whole big thing. Yeah. So there's some nostalgia there in a slight way. But what I find fascinating mostly is that every scene, Scorsese makes you feel nostalgic for a time and place you didn't experience, which is the power of filmmaking. That's why I love returning to this movie over and over. And I love everything about it, but especially the use of voiceover. It's my favorite use of voiceover in any movie ever. And the way it just guides the film adds to that feeling of nostalgia for a place you've never lived in. Ray Liotta really feels to me like he's Henry Hill.
Right? Yeah,
Like,
it's
I know,
almost
but it's
like
just like completely absorbed. If you told me this was a documentary of the guy talking over it or something, I'd believe you.
it never sounds like he's trying to narrate. It
Yeah,
sounds like he's telling you a story, like he would at the dinner table over a loaf of garlic
yeah,
with he and his friends. I think that's good. He never goes too big, um, which is a lot of restraint because Henry in real life, like he is big in a lot of ways. If you ever see documentary footage of Henry talking or interviews with the real Henry talking, I remember one of my favorite anecdotes I heard Ray Liotta say. He was researching for the role and he was listening to these tapes of Henry Hill, like talking into him. I don't know if it was his part of his testimony or whatever. But the whole time, Henry's just eating potato chips and crunching into this microphone, obnoxious, not giving a shit, not even thinking of how it might affect the audio quality. And Ray was like, yeah, that's who this guy is. Like, he just doesn't give a shit about anything. Like, um, and I was, doing research and it really makes you think about what kinds of people get attracted to this life of crime. Because, and what would have happened if somebody had put a young Henry Hill on Ritalin when he was a kid? Because he had dyslexia and almost certainly some sort of ADHD. And he's, I wouldn't say he's bright necessarily, but I wouldn't call him a complete idiot, although he does some stupid shit at the end then. But he's also popping pills, and that, kind of erodes your frontal lobe. That and, doing blow with whores all the time with the bad guy from Beethoven's Second. That's one of his girlfriends, Sandy, later in the movie. I recognize that out of nowhere. Yeah, there's a few times those. I forgot Sam Jackson was in this movie. I was like, oh yeah, Samuel Jackson's in this movie. Duh.
Once you watch The Sopranos, you'll see Sopranos people pop up in this movie.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
like,
sure.
Oh shit.
It's like, how many Italian actors? No, I even watched Sopranos, and I know some of these people were in the Sopranos and stuff. I do wonder, and I'm not a New Yorker, like how much is this Italian culture holding together in this age of globalization? Is Sebastian Maniscalco, the last Vanguard, doing his like over the top Italian impression? Do you know who I'm talking about? He's a comedian. He's a comedian who does arenas. Because there's enough Italian Americans, and he's wanting to see them. He just gets every Italian American, and I'm jumping way ahead here, but also there's a point when they're at the infamous Copacabana. And all of those, Sinatra was in with the mob and all those singers. You had to be. And they had like an old timey comedian back when comedy was just attached to other acts. It was before music or in between acts. It was not nobody. You never just bought a ticket to go see a comedian by themselves until like the 70s. That's
what about Bob Hope?
Bob Hope, maybe Bob Hope. I don't know. Some of these guys, but no, a lot of them. It was just all like vaudeville and stuff like this. And he's telling stuff like, wife in the kitchen. I was thinking, man, if I could time travel, I could make a killing alphabet.
The cheap ass jokes. Yeah. I could probably honk a horn and shoot water too. No, I'm just kidding. But what you were saying about like how much of this exists now. And I know what's crazy is that The Sopranos is 25 years old now, since the first season is 1999. But that's the cool aspect of The Sopranos, is that's what it covers. The pilot is Tony Soprano saying that he feels like he came in at the very end of all of this, and maybe like he's already come in too late and that it's over. And that's such a great way. The fact that they were doing postmodern mob stuff in 99 and now we're here 25 years later, it's like, what's left, who knows?
It's not Italian, I don't think. I think it's, when it comes to any of this, it just organized crime in general. Mexican cartels are not getting any smaller, that's for sure. They just elected a new woman president, their first woman president. To, I guess it's like, it's a progressive person in the pocket of the cartel, probably.
Just like in Arkansas, we got Sarah Huckabee Sanders, first woman. Oh, it's Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Yeah, well, we won't go into that, but and I don't know. I did get in because we're from Arkansas, so we don't have that. Like, here you're just white for the most part. I don't know. Like, I know one guy who goes around. He's Italian. I know a couple, but he's not. He actually met a guy from Washington who is also Italian American. He was like, parla italiano, and he was like, nope, I live in Arkansas. But don't have that. I also got in a fun argument with a woman the other day because I was like, you're not Irish, and she's like, yes, I am. I have an Irish passport. I'm like, yeah, but you're not. You're here with me. And her boyfriend was behind her like, don't do that. And I'm like, nope, I'm doing it.
Yeah, the mob, the people we see in this movie, it really is like a microcosm in a way. We don't see the grand scheme of things, but we do see the deterioration and kind of the slight disbandment, especially towards the end of the 70s. And especially by the end of the film, it's like already a ghost of what it was. I feel like when it starts, when he's a kid, that's the like towards the
It's a
end of the
heyday.
glory days. And then when he's a young adult, that's the end of the glory days. And so we do see that transition a bit, like the 70s and the old tradition. Especially, I find it interesting that Polly's just, he goes out of his way to make sure that they're not going to be getting into coke and drug dealing after they get out of jail. But it's kind of nothing you can do. That's the old way, and this is the new way. And it's like, you can't like avoid that amount of money,
Yeah,
especially.
you make more money than you do stealing trucks from JFK.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you just do, and it's probably easier, except you got the DEA after your ass. But and I was reading that one of the reasons that they didn't like drugs was just a lot of times it would fuck with people and they would turn on their higher ups. It just
Yeah, it
makes
makes
it just
sense.
makes people unstable.
People are going to do drugs. They're going to be around drugs. They're going to be around anybody that's willing to,
No,
make
I've
money
seen
and
this
do
in my own
drugs.
life. I've seen
Yeah.
this. Not that I would ever talk to a drug dealer, but drug dealers and I mean small time drug dealers get caught up in that. Let
Yeah.
alone if you're around Scarface level, just bricks of cocaine all the time.
Yeah.
All the fentanyl and shit going around now. Now it's gotten real scary.
Well, also, to bring it back to the voiceover, this is a dual voiceover.
It is, and I forgot that
And it
that
like,
Karen has her
when it cuts to
voiceover.
Karen, it's so smooth and it makes so much sense. And it gives her a lot of agency and gives her a lot of character that probably wouldn't have been there otherwise, and an insight and the frank truth that she, power turns people on. It can be that simple. And it's, to me, it's realistic. And to me, it's just enough to give her a backbone to where she's not just some complacent woman. She likes the power, she likes the money. It's realistic to me. And I love hearing her side of the story.
Well,
So,
it would be very easy to just have a mob wife, and we meet all those characters in the films because she talks about when
yeah.
she's first hanging out with mob wives, and they're all using semi-coded language to talk about whatever hits or deals are going on. She's like, "This is so different than my Jewish world I came from," but also it's like I don't know. They didn't have Tinder back then. What are you gonna meet a guy from Manhattan who's a banker and like no, here's this guy in your neighborhood and he can provide better than everybody else and have a more interesting lifestyle. Because I think a lot of people are, this is why you get people who are like serial monogamous, because they're addicted to drama because it's more interesting than a boring relationship.
Yeah.
uh, People implode their marriage for that, just for excitement, especially when you're young. And no, the adding her in the voiceover does elevate her agency 100%. And it is so smooth. It's amazing. It doesn't even feel like, and now we're doing this. It just happens.
Like, yeah, she's come into the story, so this is her part. And it's like, it would be way too much if anyone else did it other than his wife. But like,
because it's still really connected to Henry as much
yes,
as possible.
works. Yeah.
And we get a sense of her because she wasn't involved in things. We don't get to see her take a lot of actions. I mean, she does some stuff in this movie, but um also the scene where she yells at him because he stood her up is masterful. And the way Leota plays it, both
Yeah.
of how they play, like both of their performances, specifically in that scene, but throughout the whole, there's so many good acting decisions of just like little looks and like how it starts off angry, but then it becomes more and more flirtatious because Ray's turned on. Because like I don't know, how do you turn on a man who's like hangs out with murderers for a living? Like you gotta ratchet up you gotta turn the spice up.
Yeah.
You can't just be a pillow princess with that sort of guy. You gotta shove a gun in his face and do all that stuff.
The fact that I think he was also, it's like, in a way, she was willing to, stand her ground, fight for him, be like, hey, we were supposed to do this, this, and this, and not just like go off and do something else. So,
Right. And if you want to be a mob wife, you got to be able to handle some shit. You can't be demure.
yeah, it's just funny. It's like, I'll take you out, and you think it's like just something to say to get her off your ass at the time, but then we get the sequence, like like one of the coolest ways to impress a woman in that line of business, having everyone like make their way for you as you go into the back of the restaurant, have them set a table for you that wasn't there in the first place while you're slipping $20 bills to everyone. It's like, what better way could you like get this girl into you? Like,
To
especially that kind of
be. But
woman.
here's the thing. Here's the problem with that. Doing that on a first date or an early date. How do you top that? How do you keep that going? Which is what this whole movie is about.
Yeah.
It's never
But,
enough.
but it really is like when that sequence, which is one of the best tracking sequences shots of all time.
And I believe that it was somewhat improvised. They weren't going to do that, but then they're like, "Well, what? We're having trouble coming through this angle. What if we do
Yeah.
all?"
They decided like in the middle of the day that they're
Yeah.
like, let's do this all in one shot and
Yeah.
like plan it out real quick. They spent like a couple hours blocking it and they're like, okay, we're good. Let's do it. It's like, okay, you just did one of the most famous tracking shots of all time.
That is. I saw an interview with Jonah Hill talking about working with Scorsese, and he said like he's able to solve incredibly complex problems within like 30 seconds. You know, he'll just go off into his brain, like, something won't be working, and he'll go off into his brain and think about it, just like almost like Jimmy Neutron Brain Blast. And
Fucking
just,
Sherlock Mind Palace.
yeah,
Bullshit.
it's like Sherlock Mind. He's just like, like, okay, we'll do it like this. Um, incredibly fast thinker.
But yeah, that sequence really is like, it's an example of how this movie, a lot of it is lifestyle porn, and that's part of the fun of it. It's like looking in on really kind of, if you take away all the violence and stuff, there's some coziness there to the lifestyle.
Absolutely. Dude, this is the only movie that makes me want to go to prison. I'm like, damn, if I'm eating like that every night, lock
It's
me
just
up,
like
dude. I don't got to pay rent and I get that food.
family dinners all the time. The wives are always bringing in these giant plates of like meatballs and all this stuff. Everyone's gathered around.
I don't see how all of them don't look like Polly. It's insane. I know they're running around. I know you walk a lot in New York.
Well, it's great. I mean, my dad eats the same goddamn way they eat in this movie, and he's fit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I
your
don't
dad's
know.
in good shape.
Doesn't
For
go to
sure.
the gym either. He's just got that old country blood, I guess,
Nah,
that
dude,
I
he's
somehow didn't get.
no, well, that's what you get.
If I ate meatballs every day, I'd be in the fucking morgue. But yeah, it's like, and I like that we do get Karen's perspective. That just adds to the world building constantly. Like when she's first introduced to all these mob wives and she's hanging out with them and they're all getting their hair done, and she just comments on the stuff that these women put up with because they like the lifestyle, and they have cheap makeup even though they have money and stuff. It's just the way they like to look, and like they're always gossiping about other people. It's just fascinating to me. It's no life I've ever lived.
No, and I do wonder how much Scorsese witnessed. I mean, I obviously was surrounded by Italians his entire youth, and probably still is by choice. But like, I wonder how much mob activity he saw, because he's I mean, hell, how old is he? He's 81. How old was Henry Hill when he died? Yeah, dude, he's about the same age as Henry. They were born like a year apart.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how much of this you witness. I'm sure to some degree, yes. I'm sure you knew like that guy was in the mob, or the mob has connections with this business or stuff. I'm sure that. I don't know how much crime or whatever he witnessed, but
Obviously enough to make a career out of it.
oh yeah, no, he's done a few.
No, it's
He hasn't done as many mob movies.
I know. That is like a
I do.
joke.
We've mentioned that before. People who are like, Scorsese just does mob stuff. Not true. And Killers of the Flower Moon, I think,
Not true at all.
recently.
Check out our other episode on the King of Comedy if you want some more Scorsese talk.
Yeah, completely different. Yes, it has De Niro, but he's not even doing De Niro. Like, he's doing De Niro, but he's not doing De Niro.
It's like, I like The Irishman. I think it was a good movie. But
Still
like
haven't seen-
the Killers of the Flower Moon to me was just like way better. And The Irishman felt like his kind of like almost like a swan song of sorts, but then he just came back and did this movie that was totally better than it. And it's like, okay. But The Irishman, I mean, yeah, I really think that the aging harms it. I really think it does.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen clips
And
of
I
it.
just
I'm like,
wish
this is
he could have
off-putting.
just put some younger folks in the earlier scenes. No one would have cared. It would have been fine. And that's the thing. That's the the on the opposite end of things, I don't mind that old ass Ray Liotta comes in, is supposed to be 21 years old, and he looks fucking rough as hell.
Yeah, he's in his 30s. He's all pockmarked because that's just
Yeah,
how his skin
I can
is.
suspend my disbelief because I like Ray Liotta.
And granted, he's
I'm
been
fine
chain
with him being
smoking
in the movie
cigarettes since he
more.
was 13 in this movie.
Yeah, but
But
it's funnier though when we're supposed to see a 28-year-old Jimmy Conway and it's fucking De Niro who's in his 40s. It's like, okay, whatever,
it's pretty funny.
dude.
They gray his hair later, but it's like, okay, we'll just buy
Yeah.
this.
But
Speaking of deep fakes and CGI,
I'd rather have that than fucking de-aging.
me too. And God, I saw some of Gemini Man on TV the other day, and it was so weird. After an actually decently choreographed like chase scene on a motorcycle, but then you have
That's
like
the Ang Lee.
de-age Will Smith looking at older Will Smith slapping each other or whatever they're doing.
Yeah, it was shot like high frame rate. Was it on like
Yeah,
TV
I've
like
seen
that?
clips of it in like high frame rate.
Okay.
And it's uncanny. It's
I
just
don't.
it's weird.
It's a
Um,
weird decision.
yeah, it- high frame rate. The only time I've seen that work is in Avatar, and that's not even in all the shots. That's just in like the shots with more action and motion because it prevents the strobing.
That was fucking crazy though. When like some of the close-ups of the people on when they're like racing the boats and stuff, and it's like they're like fighting and stuff, and you
Mhm.
see the humans fly off the boat in like high frame rate. It looked like we were watching like a snuff video almost.
No,
Like,
it looks fantastic. I defend that movie. I love Way of Water. I think that's a really good like excellent science fiction movie. You know, I don't know if I call it great or one of the great science fiction movies, but it's very good.
it's a good movie.
Um, and I'm excited for the next one. As we're on the topic of deep fakes and stuff, there's another movie came out that there's been much hand rigging and ink spilled over, Furiosa, which a friend of mine recently asked if I had seen because she said it was the worst movie she'd ever seen. I was like, and I asked her, "Have you only seen 6 movies?" And she's like,
Yeah.
"No." And I was like, "What other movies do you like?" And she was like, "You know, like Black Swan and stuff like these other movies that you wouldn't consider like easy watches." I'm like, "So why
Yeah, what the hell?
I don't know. I think she was mad that there wasn't like more love interest stuff. I don't know.
The revenge fantasy.
Yeah, well, she didn't see Fury Road, so I'm gonna break balls there. But anyway, the actress who should be credited as much as Anya Taylor-Joy and
Really? Yeah.
has as much
40%
dialogue.
of the movie.
Yeah, it's half the movie. It has about the same amount of dialogue.
I was surprised.
I think as she aged through the movie, they actually use CGI to make her feature subtly. I mean, from scene to scene, subtly be more and more like Anya Taylor-Joy's, which I found a really interesting way to do it. That's what I read. I don't know how necessary that is, and you know, if they
Well,
had,
it's not like
if they had saved no, it's
I don't think it's the whole time. I think it might have been like a certain sequence, like every couple scenes for like a chunk. I don't think it like even as like a little kid.
no.
But I don't know.
You're probably right.
But
but maybe they could have saved a few million, and then there would be less editorials about that movie bombing. I don't know. Which I had a feeling it would. Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, if it's seamless, but it's still mostly the little girl, I feel like. It's not elderly Robert De Niro supposed to be in his early 20s with a fucking PS3 graphics over his face. Like that is insane. Like
we should make an Irishman too, just using Snapchat filters. I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
When are we gonna get to the point where deepfake technology is like? I was hearing, and this was even a couple of years ago, so it's probably gotten cheaper since then. Because it used to be like if you wanted to use deepfake technology for something, it's like $1,000 a second or something. Is a quote that I heard from some comedian used it in one of his specials because he like forgot a line and they deepfaked. It was Neil Brennan. He talks about it. They deepfaked and it stands out when you notice it, even though it's that quick. But it's like, when are we going to get from like it's $1,000 a second to $1,000 a minute? You know, to be like realistic.
I don't just capture what you capture. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's the same with
I want to see deep fake AI voice Luke Skywalker until I die.
Yeah, it's like the generative fill on Photoshop now. It's like remove all these people from the background from our vacation. Well, it's like you were capturing life in a certain time and place. Don't make it so artificial where half the image is generative filled AI crap. Like
Yeah, I
it's
get it. Most people don't think like that though. Most people are much more pragmatic, you realize.
I
Which is the
don't
problem is we're not pragmatists. We're fucking movie nerds. Um who
yeah. Anyway, what were we talking about in
well,
Goodfellas?
I also while researching this movie in Scorsese, I will say Scorsese got into movies because he had asthma and couldn't play sports with the other kids as a kid. How much worse would American cinema be if Scorsese hadn't had asthma? Like if they had had good inhalers back then in the 50s, how different would American cinema be?
Well, yeah, it's like that episode of American Dad I rewatched recently where they're back in time and Taxi Driver is very important to culture to the point where De Niro walks out and like quits the movie and that but they still have to make Taxi Driver because it's that important. So of course Stan Smith casts John Wayne as the lead role. And that's a good bit, but it's like, Taxi Driver is one of those hallmark American 70s movies. So,
It is. It's
good for him.
the
I'm glad
70s
he
movie, and
exists.
I need to rewatch that. I haven't seen that in years.
Yeah, but it's fucking cool movie. But
Yeah, it's incels before they had a name.
yeah.
It is really Travis Bickle. Do you think he'd be on 4chan nowadays?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
he'd be big in the queue. Holy shit,
I
he'd
don't
be.
know.
I
But the thing about watching this movie is like me sitting in my comfy chair thinking about how I'd be doing things better than these guys watching the movie.
it's
Like
so easy to watch this movie and think like, that was sloppy. He shouldn't have done that. I mean, some of the stuff,
some of these guys are just not that intelligent, which is realistic, but like if I'm going to do a big score, a big heist, I'm going to vet people very carefully. Only the people I can trust the best and not hire a bunch of nincompoops and like morons. Like
that's all you got. These
you
are all
get
high school dropouts.
I
Henry
know, I
Hill's in eighth
know.
grade education.
I don't know. I just curate people better. I know it. I'm built different, dude. No, but just like, Stacks like fell asleep and whatever and they fucking kill him and then the guys that come in for the Christmas party and one immediately shows off his new car and then the other one shows off the mink coat of his wife and it's like it's not hard to just sit on the money for a little bit. Why are you so stupid to do this? And it's like I get why Jimmy's like so upset. It's like, dude, if it was me, I would have no problem sitting on that money for as long as you need me to if I'm gonna be well off. Damn. It's
Yeah.
just
I
funny
mean,
as fuck
let's
though.
say they each get half a mil, and I'm not going to do inflation calculator, but what is that? 2 mil today, three like
I can
however much
fucking
more
sit on
money.
it.
Sit on it. I have no idea how you launder all that. I think it's an interesting choice that we don't see the Lufthansa. What is it called? Lufthansa. Am I saying that right? Yeah, Lufthansa. We don't see the Lufthansa raid. You know, we it's
Yeah,
all
it's all from when he's in the shower, he hears it over the radio. It's an interesting choice, but we don't really need to. I guess I don't really. What was his piece in the heist if he didn't have to be there? I don't know. But
Henry Hill.
yeah,
I think he just helped organize it.
yeah.
I think
I
he
guess he had
and
amounted that much like power within their community to where he can kind of stand by. I guess.
yeah
I don't know.
and
But that is interesting. But also I think it's fun to think
it's
about
fun to
how
imagine.
no
It
security
would slow down
cameras.
the movie. It would actually you would have to have this big extended high sequence, I guess, in the middle of the movie. I guess you could montage it. But also it keeps the POV on Henry Hill.
Yeah,
So I guess
totally.
the audience is still focused on Henry because this is not a movie about this is not a heist movie.
And it
Scorsese made
shows it's more fun. I like to see the setup anyway of like this person's going to do this and this person's going to do this and this is how this is going to come into play later. And it's like also like we see established like we see him do a couple of stuff like Air France and all that, but and JFK. But there's no security cameras. What a world to live in.
dude. I the whole movie I'm thinking like I think that's one reason the mob can't operate the way it used to is because we all have cell phones now.
Yeah.
We all have all that.
Everyone's
You have to
being
be real high
recorded
tech.
by the FBI anyway. So
No, it's crazy. And yeah, if we're being recorded by the FBI, cartels can do it because they run the country basically. They own all the politicians. So they have like military grade equipment and stuff. Cartel talk is a thing for fuck's sake.
yeah,
They're
fucking A.
posting it on TikTok. They're so brazen about it.
Yeah.
Just don't fuck around.
I think I think the most important thing about this is that Henry Hill does some horrible shit and he's a piece of shit and he is, you know, just as bad as everybody else in a way, but it does set up very early that he has more empathy than a lot of the other mobsters he's with. They set this up in the scene where the guy is shot in front of the pizza joint when he's a kid and he's trying to get him paper towels and all, or, towels and stuff.
Yeah, and then they're like, you wasted 6 aprons on this movie.
Yeah, it's like we don't want him in front of the store because, it's bad
Bad press.
attention and all that, which, but it's just so cold how they're like, oh, get him out of here, and Henry's willing to try his best to help him until the ambulance arrives, which really sets everything up with him. So yeah, that's one. And then there's a second through line set up in his childhood, and it's when he gets pinched for selling cigarettes. And Jimmy Conway tells him, keep your mouth shut and never rat on your friends. And that's another major theme, which has the best payoff possible at the very end of the film. And
what else was he gonna do?
yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's like you're
Even
at the end of your
people
rope.
look at and first of all, I want to say Jimmy De Niro's character is. I was also doing research, and I think because he's compared to Tommy, who's a complete psychopath in this movie, is that he seems calm by comparison. Apparently, in real life, yeah, Jimmy Burke was a lunatic. I mean, he was like all these guys were basically.
Oh yeah, you see him lose his composure a little bit. His he keeps shit together. He's more contemplative and stuff throughout the whole movie, but it slowly starts to break away. And like you see him slip, especially in the scene where Tommy comes back to kill Billy Batts after Jimmy has like tried to be a negotiator, a middleman for it. But as soon as Tommy comes in and Jimmy realizes he's about to kill him, Jimmy joins in and like gleefully like kicks the shit out of him and tries to help him kill him, and like without any hesitation, even though he was trying to mediate and like keep the peace a scene before.
Which is an insane thing because Billy's a made man, which is the whole controversy of that.
Yeah.
You can't just kill a made man without permission from higher ups, which is why they had to, hide the body. It's an interesting way to start the movie with hiding a body.
Yeah.
Because we have that, and then we have the famous, since as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be a gangster, or whatever he says. Which is true. And I mean, heck, that's why I think about so many people idolizing Scarface, despite the way that movie ends with him getting his comeuppance. Is like, if you're in these neighborhoods, you're like, well, I'm probably going to die before I'm 25 anyway, so I might as well get as much money and power as I can before then. Which is why the message just flies over people's heads because they have no future. They see no future. But you have this really dark scene juxtaposed with this. As you said, it makes you nostalgic for something you never experienced.
Yeah.
If I was 13 and somebody told me to go blow up some cars, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds fun. I don't know. I do that now.
Get paid more than the fucking blue collar men, 40-year-old men on your street to do shit like that. Yeah, it'd be hard. It'd be really tough.
Yeah, you're a dumb kid.
Having the power to have them like take your mailman and try to shove them into an oven so they don't deliver shit to your house anymore.
Yeah, so they don't deliver your report card.
And that is a point. It's like he stopped going to school when he's like 13. It makes sense. It's that time period.
Of course. Heck, I think you could kind of just do that back then. What are they gonna do?
Yeah, what are they gonna do?
Yeah. Now we just pass everybody. You're illiterate. Okay, you get a diploma.
Yeah.
We're to that point with it. So we've gone the other way.
But that is like a good way to show the real dark side of it. Like it is just
Because it's
starting
that
off.
by starting with that, the darkness is always lurking underneath the surface,
Yeah,
despite all these things. But it does give you empathy for Henry, and you never once question why Henry made some of the decisions he did. Some of the decisions you're like, that was stupid. But at the beginning of the movie, I'm talking about this part, like you never question the appeal. It's always there.
yeah, totally.
And you know that Henry doesn't see that far into the future because he's a dumb kid with ADHD.
And it's great lighting. It's got the red lighting, and like it's just so gruesome. Like the
Hellish.
stab wounds, the way he stabs him and stuff, and he's like bleeding out in the trunk. It's just so
It's
like,
the turning point of the movie, too.
Yeah,
That's when everything unravels.
yeah. But
It-
yeah, especially because like you see when they're having to redig the body back up because there's suspicion. Jimmy and Tommy are like laughing and cracking jokes. Meanwhile, Henry's like about to puke, like grossed out, freaked out a bit
Yeah.
while
They're
having
like, oh, you never smelled dead body before? That's basically
Yeah.
what the reaction is. Which I haven't, but I heard it's nauseating. And I've smelled other dead things and they've been nauseating, let alone humans.
And then we also get the scene earlier where they have to get some tools to bury the body and they stop by Tommy's house and his mom's up and it's like the most Italian scene of all time.
Oh my
She's
God.
ready, immediately ready to serve them a full dinner in the middle of the night because he's brought friends over. It's so
It's the most-
awesome.
I think that's Scorsese's mom, too.
It is, and she's
Yeah.
like the best non-actor of all time because
Yeah. Because
she
she's just
knows-
her. She is an Italian mom.
she knows them. She knows them as her son's friends, so it was like nothing to her to even act and talk to them just like
Yeah.
she would normally. But it's also great because they're like cutting it up and having a good time and like even joking about the guy they just killed. And Henry's like stoic and like quiet, and she even points it out. And that's just, he's separate a bit from the other two, and I think that's really important even in this dark story to empathize just a little
It
bit
is
more.
important because there's even like he was because I was doing some research and it was saying like he wasn't actually in the mob. He just worked with the mob, which I don't know how it works with getting inducted or being a made man is obviously different. That's another level.
Yeah.
How different was he really though? I mean, at a certain point, and he half-assedly tried to go straight a couple times. He joined the military for a bit, but he got court-martialed because he was like, stealing shit and
Yeah.
doing all that, just being a fuck. It was inevitable. Everything was inevitable. Like that's who Henry was,
Yeah.
in as much dignity and grace as Ray Liotta brings to him, he probably brings more to him than he really had because it's a movie.
Totally.
'Cause
Oh,
you watch-
I totally believe that.
Oh, you watch interviews with him and you're like, this guy. But like you watch, I just watch an interview with him and it's like he says fuck more than this entire movie. In the interview, he says it every other word. And like there's a lot of fucks in this movie.
Yeah, there's a high swear count in this movie.
This is a very hard R movie. Like, so
Yeah.
it's like he's like, fucking, yeah, you know what I mean? Fucking, I'm 2% exaggerating. That's how he talks.
Well, I remember trying to look up into the facts of this movie back in the day when I did. Have you listened to that episode of Howard Stern?
No,
Where-
I have not.
He's talking to Henry Hill, and while Henry Hill's on there, one of the relatives of Spider like calls and like shits on him and like calls him out for it. It's pretty fucked up because you might be wondering, well, how real is this stuff? Well, there's your proof right there. Like Spider was, I think it was his sister that calls or something, and she's just like disgusted that he would come on a talk show and stuff while meanwhile her brother's dead or whatever. And it's just like, even though he didn't kill him, but it's still complacency. It's just sick.
I don't know. He could have helped out. He was certainly an accomplice. I don't know how Henry didn't get caught at some point. I know he moved all over the place. I've never been in witness protection. So I don't know how it works. But especially when this movie was coming out and it was so publicized, and he has done interviews and stuff. I think the thing is like he was very secretive about how he met up with people and how he communicated with people.
Yeah.
I think before the premiere, he and Ray met maybe once, probably real clandestine. And it's but once the movie came out, I mean, I guess he was always just, even if he was at an event, he was surrounded by people, or if he was being interviewed, he was surrounded by people. So, there was kind of, nobody wanted to make the hit, then. Also, he just outlived a lot of people. A lot of other people got pinched for various things, because of what he said. And again, even by the time this movie came out in 1990, how powerful was the mob? I have no idea. I mean, it was declining then, I'm sure.
Let's talk about Tommy Joe Pesci.
Let's talk about Tommy Joe Pesci.
Tommy is like, once again, me being the armchair critic, I was like, man, after he shoots Spider in cold blood, it's so appalling. And Jimmy's even like, what the fuck, man? Like, you have to go dig your own grave, you bastard. But it's like, after that, and after losing his temper on Billy Bats, to me, I would, if I was in that crew, I'd be like, okay, Tommy is just too much of a, what's the word I'm looking for?
Loose cannon.
Yeah, like, we gotta just take care of this guy. He's gonna fuck too much shit up for him. I would have killed him earlier on.
Yeah, well, they did. That's eventually what happened.
I know, but like, it happens too late. I feel like this guy should have been taken care of a long time ago. He should have never. Anyone with that hot-headed should not be that level of power. And
but it's such a money-driven industry, if you want to call that. Like, if he brings in bread, he brings in bread. I guess he just had too much heat for the oven. No, him killing Spider, that was the kid, right?
Christopher Moltisanti from Sopranos, but yeah.
Okay, he's in Sopranos too.
Yeah, the guy who brings him the drinks and like makes him dance and shoots him in the foot and shit. And it's like for no reason.
Oh yeah, no, it was crazy. If you're ever around people with guns, do people with guns bug? And I'm not even like anti-gun, but sometimes people are just swinging barrels around, almost like he was at that. I mean, at the range, or like outdoor. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, saying "go fuck yourself" to a guy after he shot you—that's pretty ballsy and stupid.
It's pretty stupid. Very stupid. Unfortunately, sometimes my anger builds so much that I just say shit like that without any rationale, and I'm
especially when you're a teenager. Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem is, I did that. I got sent to the office in school. I didn't get fucking shot by Joe Pesci.
Yeah. But it makes me think of, there's a good episode where the Bart is told to get a job, make some extra money. He starts working for the mob in Springfield and like making them drinks and shit. He's like 10 years old. It's a good one. But yeah, but as for Tommy, it's like one of the best setups for his character is his what do you mean I'm funny? Funny how?
Which I believe was improvised.
Because you're just in with the characters on the scene, like, how serious is this guy? Even when you know he's kidding, as you've seen the movie before, you're still trying to really tell what level of serious and what level he's not. And really shows that he's kind of low-key pissed off about shit all the time. And
right. And
over it.
Yeah, these people have no filters, and their frontal lobes are gone. It's just pure animal instinct. One of the things that make that scene so good is, first of all, it gives you plenty of time to breathe. And a lot of times in movies, the appeal of movies or any story is like, what would I do in this situation? And it's hard for me to think of what I would do in this situation during an airport heist or something like that. But I think we've all been in the situation where we've either said the wrong thing to somebody or they've misinterpreted something you've said.
Yeah.
And you've had to de-escalate. But this is obviously on 50 times the intensity because motherfuckers packing a gun. Because I've had that where I'm like, I don't know what you want me to say because you're completely like misinterpreting what I said, because you're just an angry, crazy dude. So being able to like find something, a relatable point of tension for the audience versus like something that's more fantastical, like your wife's pointing a gun in your face. Yes, that happens, but I've never had a gun pointed in my face. Maybe
Yeah.
that's why I'm, a pussy liberal beta male. But um, being able to write something so relatable,
And it's
or
also like
implement something so relatable.
Henry at that point still new blood enough to where he's still trying to figure out what he can and can't say, I think, with some of these guys. And he wants to be able to be in the good graces of everybody, even though
Right.
he's in the mix now, but like he's still pretty young.
And so many of the rules are unwritten. That's why I wouldn't be able to do the mob. As like I would piss them. I would say something. I would be sarcastic, and it just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
I've heard about Tim Allen, who went to prison for drugs, and he was a rat. That's how he got his sentence commuted or shortened or whatever. Tim Allen was talking about in prison, he would make people laugh. He's like, yeah, but it was all silly in characters. It wasn't sarcasm. That's not taken well in prison.
That makes sense. That sounds right to me.
Yeah, maybe sarcasm making fun of the guards and CO, not other prisoners.
Yeah. But yeah, so Tommy had it coming. I love that scene where he's going to be made, and then all you see is the shot of the empty table, and that's it. Like, boom. Like, you don't even get to see the gun shoot him in the head. All you see is his head already spurting with blood. Like, that's such a good choice.
Oh, but they do audio wise. They're such a good choice of you hear an like
yeah,
you realize he has that split second of realization.
too late. So
Too
good.
late.
And it's funny because like by this point, Jimmy has like started to kill off so many people, and he's started to unravel. And it's after this point that he's crying over Tommy who's been killed, and just it's so disgusting to me because like you never see him break any of these guys break, but he's like hand over his face, like crying over this, and it's like, fuck this guy. Who gives a shit? Fuck him. He needed to get out of there. You liked him that much. But that's an interesting thing about Jimmy is like up until like the halfway point, he's pretty got a smart head on his shoulders, but then he just starts killing anybody that he feels can get in his way. And that's such a cold thing. Like, oh, we did this big heist. You know what? Instead of trying to keep these people quiet, I'm just gonna kill them all off. Like, what a bastard.
And maybe they get a bigger cut. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but like the biggest one is like Frankie Carbone. It's like, why did you kill him? He was by their side the whole time. He never caused any trouble. He was always there doing what he needed to do. That's so terrible. Like that's the biggest one. It's like this guy was always doing everything he was told and never asked any questions. And you even killed that guy. It's just like watching Jimmy's character devolve is disgusting.
Why did he? Yeah, why did he kill Frankie Carbine? I'm trying to remember
Because he wanted all the piece of the pie for himself, all that money they made.
I mean, he's like, well, I already killed one.
That's simple. Yeah.
Might as well go down the line, thinking that won't ever get back to you.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I get killing Maury because he sells the shitty wigs.
Yeah, it's just
I really appreciate that commercial he's in where he dives into the water and he pops back up, but it's clearly an edit where he just like the wig was never submerged. I don't know. Something about that local 1970s television.
That's where he breaks though. When he decides he's gonna kill Maury, and we get that awesome shot of him and the Sunshine of Your Love is playing, and it's just that one shot of him. That's all you need to know. But that's where he splits. It's like, oh, I'm gonna kill Maury because he's pissing me off and he won't quit asking me about money. He's being annoying. You don't kill someone because they're annoying.
No, I wish, but I'd be dead. Like, I'd be dead.
But that's really like the turning point to me. It's like he does that. And so it's like, well, if you're going to kill someone because they're annoying the shit out of you, what's to stop you just because you want more money? It makes sense, but it's fucking horrible. But yeah, I do like Maury. Yeah, that commercial is one of the funniest parts of the movie. It's not overly funny movie, but dark humor, unintentional on the characters' parts. Like
there's humor. I wouldn't call it comedy. I would make that. But like, there's humor.
Like when they're eating dinner, like I said, with Scorsese's mom. That's fucking funny. Like,
no, yeah.
He's pulling out the knife. He's like, "Oh, I need this to cut off the deer's hoof that we crashed into." Like, Jesus, dude.
And there's so many idiosyncratic details that I feel like today would be edited out of the script, but that's what gives it texture. Just like and this also it does show character of like how kind of goofy or out of the loop or uneducated they are. They're like, what do you call it? The paw, and I think it's Henry who's like the hoof, or
Yeah.
maybe it's Jimmy who says it. But just little things like that I feel like today producers would like take it like, oh, that's unnecessary.
Yeah, totally.
Maybe. Although there's, plenty of bloated scripts showing up in movie theaters nowadays anyway.
But it's the way that is written and all these things, how they all these tiny little things that connect together is why I love the movie so much. So I'm glad all those little details are in there. And not enough movies have that level of detail anymore. I
Right.
feel like it's just like too many bareboat scripts are produced these days. I feel like.
No, it's too bare bones, and like the production process, just from what I can tell, is too rushed. And not enough pre-production because there's a we'll fix it in post mentality.
Yeah.
Um that's a lot of it.
So I talked about Jimmy devolving. Obviously, Henry devolves pretty hard. He fucking hits the pills and then the coke and all that. But also, it's like, for the most part, at first, he's good to his wife. And like, there is that sequence that sets that up. Like, he didn't handle it as a normal person should. But when that guy sexually harasses her, he walks up to his house, like beats him in the head with that butt of the gun. That's one of the gnarliest sounding sound effects too. Like watching that hit his skull is fucked up, dude. But like it's a good way to show that he does care about her and is willing to do shit for her. But also that's another act of like either you're in or out, and Karen's totally in. And not only is she in, she admits to the people watching at home that it turns her on a bit, and like she has to keep the gun. It's like, but him having her keep the gun is like the first instance of like, okay, you're complacent now, you're in this.
Well, that's always the thing there is with mob. The mob tries to get you to do stuff with them starting out small so they can like have dirt on you basically. I remember Jay Leno was talking about he used to work clubs where the mob was there or had a stake in the club or whatever. And sometimes they'd be like, hey, why don't you while you're going downtown, why don't you take this envelope and drop it off here? And he'd always be like, I'm in a rush. I'm trying to like just because that's if they get you that much,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff. And again, that's why all these unwritten rules, I wouldn't be able to do it. I'm too like, I don't know, socially awkward. Because there's another mob video I was watching of Jason Alexander, the actor who plays George in Seinfeld, who I will call Jason Alexander and not George because he's a talented actor in his own right. But he was talking about, I don't know, somebody who had relations with the mob asked him about John Gotti. When John Gotti got out of prison, and he went to like eat big dinner with all his higher up mob friends, like $75,000 worth, of just like champagne, whatever. He's like, well, how do you handle that situation? And you have to be exactly right. You have to be like, hey, this one's on me because it's a big day for Gotti. Obviously, I can't do this all the time, or I go out of business. But it's a special day, and it's like. But if you say anything on either side of that, of like, hey, you have to pay, then they'll like burn your place down after for not showing respect, or B, oh, it's fine. You like then they'll just run you over and do that all the time and put you out of business. Like just things like that. Terrifying.
That is terrible, especially and we see that in the movie where the guy asks Tommy, like, hey, you've run up $7,000 at the restaurant. Can you pay the bill? And he's like, and Tommy, of course, takes it as like
a personal affront.
You're doing this in front of everybody.
Friends?
And to be fair, you should have pulled him aside after the dinner and asked instead of doing it in the middle of dinner. That's stupid on the guy's part. But obviously, Tommy shouldn't smash him in the head with shit. But yeah, it's like, and that's starts the whole thing too, because that guy goes to Paulie the next day with a bandage over his head, like looking for personal protection, So now Paulie's willing to give that to him. So now they can't do shit. But when he runs out of money for the restaurant, they burn it down for him because he's now in with the mom. It's like, Jesus, dude.
No, it's terrible.
Well,
You have to do it. I mean, you and also a lot of times protection's mandatory.
yeah, it's such an abusive
I've read about
relationship.
crime in Italy, and I talked to a guy who visited Italy, and he was talking about it, not just the touristy places. And it's like the mob, now the Italian mob in Italy is still running strong, and they definitely have their, with Berlusconi, and I don't know who's president now, but um, with all their political, like they're deeply entrenched in the politics there. And Italy now has, it has tons of problems as far as we think of like Western Europe. I mean, it's actually got a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And has for a long time.
But it's like, yeah, the mob itself is like an abusive relationship on a large scale. And then we see the smaller scale abusive relationship with the people. And we see that develop with Karen and with fucking Henry going around with a Gumar, and all these different girls and stuff, especially the main one, which he's got living in the city or whatever. And we do get that scene where he does wake up to the gunner to his face, and we get a new voiceover of her being frank with herself, and Henry, we can see him be as calm as he can, but you can see the gears turning of him waiting for the exact moment he can till he can get the upper hand. And then he immediately turns it around on her and says, "You're crazy, you're this." And then by the end of that confrontation, she's the one screaming sorry and all this and stuff. And it's like really horrific the way she's screaming sorry. And it's like, when you learn about abuse victims and stuff, it's like that's pretty standard stuff. Especially,
that's pretty textbook, like manipulate them emotionally.
Yeah, especially earlier in the movie, you see him like say, "It's all in your head. You're crazy, Karen. This, and this." It's like,
yeah,
so
actual
gross.
gaslighting versus whatever people on the internet think gaslighting
Exactly.
is.
Yeah, but it's just like that's a flaw to his character that.
Yeah, there's a lot, but that's a big one.
I know, but that's the big one that's like, you're complacent with all murder and stuff, but this makes me actually like you less than the other stuff.
It's that weird thing where, like, I don't know, I understand wanting to make money selling drugs and how you might rationalize that. Being abusive, yeah, you're just a dick. You're not making any money off of that.
I think Paulie, of all people, out of all these guys, has like the most level-headed. Like, he's in charge of stuff, and he does a weird way of doing it by like not wanting to call people and stuff and sending guys around and stuff.
Wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, that's true. But he has the best head on his shoulders. He only does like a year of time compared to everybody else, and it's only because of the stint in Florida that he even got caught in the first place, which he had nothing to do with. And he, after that, is like taking the time to say, "Hey, don't get into drugs. Don't do this. Let's do it the old way. Let's just keep a slow and steady pace," And he's the one who, like, he controls everything, but I don't know. What I'm trying to say is, I wish he could have like turned Henry into like a more like a manager level or something. Have him like become. I guess you can't become a made man or anything, but like.
But also, I think Paulie, yeah, because isn't part of it like he's only half Italian, and that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
He's half Irish.
I don't know what he would do, but
but also I think Paulie's depiction in this movie is more, because it is from Henry's point of view. It's more paternal and wise than he probably really was.
Yeah.
Because I'm just reading this here. I mean, Paulie had such a violent temper that a waiter spilled a drink on his wife's dress, and he tried to like wipe it out with a dirty rag. Later, Paulie hit him, and then later that night sent 2 carloads of men armed with pipes and baseball bats to beat the crap out of the waiters.
Okay, well, fuck him.
Yeah.
But within this movie, I'm just saying. I
Within
guess
this
the point,
movie, he's much more loved. And I'm sure here's the thing: from a business point of view, from a mob point of view, he clearly was. You know,
yeah. Well, the part of the point though is like, I guess it's shocking to me that they we see Henry and Jimmy and Tommy doing all of this like dirty work despite being so far up now. It feels like in the mob, like why do they have to do all of this dirty work? Like we see them having to dig all these bodies and stuff and do all these petty crimes, or not petty, but just like stuff you would think were like lower level. It's interesting that they're not like, see, if I was Henry, I wouldn't even be, I would be making myself a kingpin when it comes to all the coke and like, getting a couple of good guys to be distributors. And like he's selling shit himself and like making the 8 balls himself and stuff. And it's like, dude, yeah, that's so weird. Like, and like he has money, but like he's constantly spending all of it, it seems like. Because by the end of it, he's freaked out that that last package was put in the toilet by Karen, which makes sense. Like the police are at your door. But it's like if you were depending on that to get out of here and like be able to do shit, like where is all your money going? I don't know.
it's in the crap. I mean, all of these people, none of them are long term planners.
Yeah, clearly.
And that's, I mean, like neurologically, that's the kind of person attracted to this lifestyle, or that the lifestyle attracts. You know, um, and I mean, you can even see there's an expression, I think it might be Greek or something, maybe Italian. Poverty demands a good time, and it's that idea of we've seen it, and heck, I've arguably am doing it right now in my life, where it's like you spend your money on short-term things because you never know when that money's going to go away, or when somebody's going to have a hospital visit or need a doctor or something. You're like, well, I might as well enjoy this while I have it. And it's hard to deprogram that. That's why like athletes and rappers, who are just like kids from nowhere, and then they make a bunch of money when they're 20 23 or whatever, and like so many of them end up broke.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I feel like a lot of this movie, I've used this analogy, this image before for a couple movies, but it's the Wallace and Gromit, or Gromit's laying down the track on the train as it's going kind of thing. Like it's, especially when we get to 1980 and he's coked up and shit, it's really like exactly like that.
And god tier editing.
Yeah, and like it's really learning about the editing. I think it was it in Terrell's class.
Maybe I don't remember. I mean,
I just remember studying as a teenager, like this movie really took, like you can learn almost everything need to know from this movie in a
about
lot of
filmmaking.
ways. Yeah,
Yeah,
filmmaking,
honestly, it's
editing
all
and
there.
cinematography especially.
Yeah.
But it's like we get to this sequence where it cuts to 1980 and he's coked out of his mind and he is going hour by hour. And anyone that understands the language of film knows if he's going hour by hour, then something hugely, hugely significant happens in this day. And so you're waiting for it the whole time. And then you assume it's probably, okay, this guy's going to get arrested or he's going to get killed or something. And so, but he's still narrating it. But either way, it's the fact that when you get to this point, it gets choppier, the edits get faster, the scenes start to speed up a bit as he gets more frantic, as he's paranoid watching the helicopter overhead. And that's the fun of it. It's like at first you think he's just being paranoid about the helicopter, but he actually is being watched. And it's totally valid. That's the best part to me. But it's just like, yeah, it's going hour by hour suddenly. Like we were watching this movie go from months to years skipping at a time. And now it's like slowed down to that point.
No, it stands out.
The detail of like, I have to pick up my kid brother. I have to make sure the sauce. He's so obsessed with making sure it's a good sauce by the point it gets to dinner time. Like you have to slow cook.
None of this
sauce.
2 cans of tomato, 3 onions shit.
Yeah.
Too many onions in the sauce. That's too many onions for me too.
Such a funny bit too in the prison where he's like, "Don't put too many onions in the sauce." What? 3 small onions? 3 onions?
3 onions? Yeah, that's a lot, dude. That garlic though, razor thin, liquefying in the pan.
That's
what do you think?
To me,
you've worked in Italian kitchens.
Yeah, to me, that's like you have to. have your pan on like low medium for that to not immediately burn in the olive oil to me. That seems kind of unrealistic, but that's just me.
Is that your problem with this movie? The
No,
realism
well, I just
of the
think
garlic,
chopping it is just fine. You don't, that's way too much.
but
That's
it's
like,
so cinematic.
that's making, I know, but it's just making your time harder. Either way, when he's doing petty shit like making 8 balls and like going to try and get rid of those guns and hide them because he thinks he's being followed. It's like, dude, in the 60s and early 70s, you were class act. Like to see him
Cocaine's a
this,
hell of a drug.
this low is pathetic. And like he even
It is
gets,
pathetic. By the end of the movie, he is pathetic.
he is
How
very
do you
pathetic.
feel about Henry at the end of the movie?
I think it's a fantastic end. I think that's a worse hell to him, probably in a way, than death is having to live a boring, normal suburban life.
Which
But
is so crazy because even that speaks volumes of like, I don't get over it. Like I mean, being hunted by the mob, I don't want to do that either. He's like, oh no, I have to have a normal life now. It's like, well, I guess.
we were talking about like how I would do it, how I would vet people and stuff. But it's like he's even using his old babysitter to move shit, and he's like planning to put her on a plane and stuff. And you're depending on this dumb girl. Like that is infuriating to me.
Incredibly dumb.
And she
Who,
calls from the house. Like,
right. At first, I was like, is she like a plant for the DEA? No, she's just that dumb.
no, she's just
Trusting
that
the
dumb.
babysitter.
And she won't fly without her special lucky hat or whatever, dude. That shit infuriates me. That's like,
Oh, that would be like this chick's into crystals. That's what that would be today.
yeah.
Spending all of her drug money at the crystal shop, and I'm not talking about meth. Also, this family eats at 10:45. Is that what
Yeah,
Italians do?
I've eaten some late ass meals.
Dude, those Mediterranean late ass meals, that drives me insane.
It fucks you up because then you might get heartburn from all that red sauce, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like it's you go to the Mediterranean, you eat dinner at 7. They look at you like you're like, what? It's so early. What's wrong with you? It's like, dude, I don't want to eat like bolognese and have heartburn while I'm trying to sleep. And also, the point is that I'm not hungry. But if I'm waiting all the time and then I immediately go to bed and then I just wake up and eat breakfast, what was the point of me eating like this 1,500 calorie meal? I mean, Italians are thinner than us, so they must be doing something right. But goddamn, there's some fat Italians. There's fat Italians.
Also, it's important to see that Karen is equally as coked up during these sequences. So she's also kind of at the end of things for herself too. Like by the time they're in the fucking offices to get put into what's it called? Witness protection. She's like still trying to play innocent even in that moment. It's like, dude, come on, man. And I will say, I hate to admit it, as someone who avoids violence and confrontation at all costs, when Karen puts the pistol in her panties, I find it very sexy. This is
What you find sexy is a woman willing to do anything for
but
you.
also it's like a very striking image of her high quality, like satin pink panties with this disgusting handgun.
Yeah, dirty snub nose revolver.
Yeah, like it's such good like planning for an image like that. So many striking images in Scorsese's movies because he knows what he's doing. But that's just like a prime example, like such an easy juxtaposition, you know. But I don't know. Yeah. So that sequence is one of my favorite edited sequences in cinema history. It taught me a lot as a teenager.
Teaches a lot. And I said during our discussion about The Graduate that the editing in The Graduate, when he's going into La La Land and the editing gets all wonky, it really reminds me of this scene. And that's just because totally. The editing changes significantly in order to reflect the subjective POV.
Totally.
Editing is underrated as an art form by a lot of people.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's where the movie's made. So many people that watch movies don't realize how much of the movie comes together in editing.
Oh, so much. It's Terrence Malick. There's a lot of
Star Wars.
Yeah, Terrence Malick. And I mean, Frances McDormand, I've heard her refer to, she's like, cinema, it's not an actor's medium. It's not even a director's medium. It's an editor's medium. Yeah. I don't know how much, if I believe that wholesale, but I get what she's saying. And she says the best directors, when they film, have an idea of like how they're going to edit it, of course.
Oh yeah.
And then there's
Oh.
also I know I'm just referencing bits now, but Patton Oswalt talks about the importance of editors because like you have these male directors who are like have their big camera dick and they're like, oh, every frame's a painting. I have to get thousands of hours of footage. And then you bring it to like a woman editor and they're like, oh geez, now I have to make a movie. Like I have to make the movie. Like I have to figure out like, okay, what your ego, how do I sift through you know,
A lot, yeah.
George Lucas, blah blah blah.
Yeah. When I a lot of music I listen to, that's how I start to form certain scenes that I want to shoot. Is like heavily inspired by how would I pair this to the film with which cuts and what kind of shots. Anyway, but when after all this, we do get the kind of like final Polly payoff in the fact that like kind of like a I told you so, where he's just sitting around cooking sausages and stuff. Like he's not probably making a shit ton of deals now, but like he says, fuck it, I have to turn my back on you. Gives Henry $3,200. This is like 25 years he's been working with Polly, and this is how it like ends. It's such like a not like it's such a pathetic like wet fart of like an ending between these two guys. You know, it's just like anticlimactic, which is realistic because
What do you do at that point?
that's what he deserves, you know. And it's smart of Polly to turn his back on him. Fuck it, cut him out of his life. It's this far gone. And it's also we see the end, kind of the pathetic end of Jimmy. Not that we see him go to prison, but just like we see that even at the end, we can't really tell if he was going to whack Karen when she's walking down and he tells her to go into that alleyway. But there's such like this uncertainty that you're trying to figure out if that's something he's willing to do, which of course I think he's willing to do. I don't know if he was
It's
going
left
to.
ambiguous.
I love how ambiguous it is.
Yeah, and it's the ominous of them. They all just stare at her, shadows in there. Do you think he would have killed her? Or do you think he would have used her as leverage to get to?
I think he would have used her as. I don't think he was going to kill her right then and there. But that's the crazy part, is that he totally could have.
Yeah,
But I like that those are like kind of the closing scenes for those characters. Obviously, Tommy we see killed,
right.
but it's such a brutal shot when you see both of Polly and Jimmy sitting in the courtroom as Henry can like barely even look up as he points to him. It's so pathetic. It's so awesome.
It is. Also, this may be stupid. What if people can't see what you're pointing at? What if they think you're pointing at person A, but you're pointing at person B?
They don't. It's just like recognizing that these people are in here. Like everyone knows. There's no one else named Polly, whatever his last name is.
It's a dramatic thing.
What you sound like some Cinema Sins bullshit.
It really that is a Cinema Sin. That was just a stupid thought that was in my head.
I know, yeah. Because like,
what if they accidentally point it and it's kind of strays toward me, and then
you're pointing out people digest media.
Yeah, the court reporter gets arrested.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a stupid thing.
No, but like, I don't know why it's so powerful, but when he's narrating at the end and then it has him break the fourth wall and he walks towards us and continues the narration, I don't know the full reason why that was a choice. I just know it works well, and for
reasons emotionally. Also, I think one of the reasons it works well is because Henry Hill's a real person, and that's him talking to the audience. He's like, I'm real, and I'm in your world now.
We're caught up to the present, pretty much.
I could be in your neighborhood.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's probably one of the best fourth wall breaks ever.
Yeah. Maybe topped by the end of Killers of the Flower Moon, but
yeah, maybe so. He knows how to do it.
He knows how to do it. He doesn't do it for cheap Deadpool laughs. Nothing like that.
It's like even the way he just kind of like shrugs to the camera at the end. It's like, okay, wow. But then
I think, and one of the things that makes it realistic is again how banal it is, because it doesn't feel overly didactic. Like certain crime movie, like Scarface, where like it's so dramatized and so hammered home the point of crime doesn't pay
Yeah.
that it feels like you're watching something made by the Dare program in elementary school. You know, um, it does feel understated, and it doesn't have to tell you. You just see it, and that's enough. Because I don't know if you knew this, Scorsese can make a movie. I want to say one more thing about the music. In the soundtrack is "Remember Walking in the Sand" by Shangri-Las, which was better known as a TikTok sound. Oh no, oh
Oh
no,
yeah, fucking A.
oh no, no. Yeah, that's in this movie.
Getting ruined. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know. Totally. But also,
it's actually a good song if you listen
what I
to it.
like is that once they brought you up to the present, or at the present of the time, it's like that is such a modern way to end it. Like, okay, this is a trial that's just happened a few years ago. And it ends, instead of using like a Frank Sinatra track, they use a cover of a Frank Sinatra track, which is like a
Mm,
punk version of My Way, which I thought was an interesting way to bring it into 1990, which is,
that is an interesting choice, and also
yeah.
I'm too stupid with music to pick up that that's a Frank Sinatra song because I'm illiterate. It's I don't even yeah.
Well, that's such a good choice for the end credits. Like, whoa, because we haven't heard any music like that before up
What if it
until
was ska? What if it was just straight ska? Like
a little too early. But
straight
it'd be
like
pretty funny.
manifesto plan. That'd be pretty funny.
Also, we get the like right before that, we get Tommy doing the ode to OG cinema, like late 1800s cinema of him pointing the gun at the screen and
Of
shooting.
that, I know it's saying because I've seen Scorsese talk about that and how it's obviously it's a reference to the Great Train Robbery, which if you've ever taken a film class, you've probably seen.
Yeah.
One of the first, maybe the first narrative film. We watched it. It's fun. It's a fun time. Um, and he's saying these people are the modern day. You know, this has a lineage going back to the old West, and its crime is part of America's DNA. I
Yeah.
guess that's what he's saying with it.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. And it's
But
neat. It's
yeah.
striking seeing Joe Pesci shoot you.
Yeah. Plus it like it's kind of like a split second like contrast to like the banality of the ending. And it's just like, whoa, okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Do you think that's Tommy from Beyond the Grave getting his revenge?
it's getting the revenge on me for watching this for the 200th time.
Yeah, I don't know.
But so Goodfellas is a good movie, everyone. I hope you understand that. Uh
Yeah.
anything
How many
else?
local businesses have used the term? Because I can name like a pizza place and two barbershops off the top of my head that
Yeah.
straight up use the Goodfellas logo.
I
And
know,
just
yeah. That's the thing is like font is not copyrighted,
right.
so
Or you can have really similar off-brand fonts, like the Sam's Choice fonts that you can get for free.
yeah.
That are like, oh well, the dot on this lowercase I is 2 pixels to the left, so it's not the same font.
Yeah, it's not the same. Quit bothering us.
No, Goodfellas Pizzeria, and it's in the Godfather font. Eating there.
Yeah, I've eaten Goodfellas pizza.
I
It was
don't know.
fine. But anyway, the message of this story is Scorsese can actually make a film. I didn't know if you guys knew that, but that's why we came here today to talk about it.
Yeah, Italian
Anything else?
food's good.
Italian food's good. Goodfellas, more like bad fellas.
More like mid fellas.
Anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. Next week, I'm not actually sure what we're getting into next week, but stay tuned.
Solo.
We're in the summer season now. We might do a couple summer flicks. I don't know yet the full schedule.
120 days of Sodom summer.
Yeah, there you go. 120 days of spaghetti, which is what I'm going to name my restaurant. Anyway, thanks for listening. If you want more from us, this is our 150th episode. We have plenty more in the backlog. Go check it out. We've got a Scorsese episode or two. Um, I have a book for sale. You can buy that in the description. It's a coming of age book. We have a tie-in film. You can find that in the description. Scott's a comic. If you live in Arkansas, you can check him out. Follow him at Scott K Comedy. Follow me at The Mooring Line, etc., etc. Hope your summer's going well so far. We'll see you next week.